For those of you who don't remember, who have just joined us, I'm Roger Struckoff. I'm the conference chair, and I don't know anything. That's why we bring people in to talk about stuff. The title of this panel is something to do with hybrid cloud. I remember that. And the follow-up question, though, is where is the private cloud? So rather than make it quite that black and white, what I'd like to do, I think, with our panelists is just kind of talk about the continuum, because I think we're in an age now where most enterprises, there are some enterprises that go all in for specific reasons, but there are a lot more enterprises, I think, that don't, and why they make those decisions and that sort of thing. So first thing we'll do is have you go 1, 2, 3, just introduce yourselves, briefly what you do, and when you think of hybrid cloud, what do you think of, what do your customers think of? Randy.
Hi everyone, Randy Domino, Chief Technologist for our Windows products at Commvault. And the first thing that comes to mind, whether it's public cloud or private cloud, is a lot of customers, a lot of end users don't really care. They just want access to their data. And it's up to the IT teams to make it simple as possible to almost hide the fact that it's private cloud or public cloud. It's more of the IT team's responsibility to protect the data, to make sure it's secure. And it's really just about the data. And the users who are using the data, the people who are analyzing the data, they're just concerned they have access to it. And they can have access to it and get it back and do something with it. So I put it back on, I guess, the IT team responsibility if they want to go public cloud or private cloud or simulated public cloud, which is just a rehash of someone's private cloud offering.
And were you the guy that said polycloud yesterday?
Yeah, I'm the one who said.
We'll get to that in a minute.
That's a polycloud. I have to give someone else credit for that. I'll talk in the story about polycloud a little later.
And Adam, organizationally, as you introduce yourself, I think organizationally your company has been around a long time and started as a service provider, and so you've probably seen the evolution.
We're a managed service provider, and I think of our business primarily, although we do a lot of different things, but primarily focused on helping our clients move at least some of their infrastructure from a private environment to a public environment. And they're doing that partly because that's the trend, partly because it seems like the business case for moving into a more hybrid type of environment makes their projects much more viable than just replicating what they currently are doing on a private environment. And just to embrace that sort of eventual migration is going towards the public sphere, if you will. So we are sort of helping our clients bridge that gap.
And Yi, we spoke this morning, we did a little TV stuff and we talked a little bit. So you're all about the public cloud.
Yes, we are a public cloud service provider in China, one of the leading one. The way we see private cloud and public cloud relationship is probably different view, because China is just been picking up on those internet thing or the IT structure. Many customers that don't even have a private cloud before. So they start with the public, but there's some customer might from finance firm or insurance firm, and they're going to have to keep some data inside the data center. So we're going to start talking about some of the kits in their own data center, and then we're going to just run things in hybrid fashion.
So Randy, you have a variety of customers, and oftentimes, I think, they're going to face a basic question of which cloud to choose. That's sort of...
You're going to put me on the spot a little bit, aren't you?
Well, a little bit. And how do they, if that's so, how do they work through that decision process?
A little tough for me. I got to be a little bit Switzerland here, because we do support, I don't know, 30-plus different cloud providers, both public and private. But one, two experiences we have. First is, make sure you pick a cloud vendor you know is going to be there 3 or 5 years from now, because I mentioned yesterday, and a lot of people got a kick out of the fact that we got a call several years ago from Nirvanix and said, hey, we're going out of business in 2 weeks. Good luck with that, and try to figure out how to move your customers, because we're turning off the power and shutting off the lights. So when you make your cloud decision, whether it's public or private, first thing is make sure somebody's going to be there 3 to 5 years from now. The second one, and I'll try to be as politically correct as possible. The first answer I would have is investigate the cloud provider you're using to see if they're really open. And there's various ways to do that. So, if anybody's here from Amazon or from Microsoft, I'll give a shout out to them, because both of those companies have a vested interest in providing their infrastructure to run a lot of these cloud environments. a lot of these cloud solutions. And not only that, they're kind of putting their money where their mouth is because they're providing incentives for their own internal forces to provide those solutions. Where we see some other vendors who are saying, yes, we have a public cloud, or yes, we have a private cloud, but we really want you to work with our software. And only if you twist their arm will they actually come in with more independent type of solution. So from, I guess, the one suggestion I have when you're deciding to make your cloud decision or decisions, and we'll get to the polycloud comment later, is A, make sure you pick a cloud vendor that's going to be there for you 3 and 5 years from now. And second, make sure you investigate how really open those cloud providers are. Are they just saying, yes, we support other things? Or are they actually maybe putting it on a marketplace somewhere? Or are they actually incenting and educating their field to help you grow your cloud in a completely open environment by providing solutions that are open? I think that's a big question that's going to become more and more resonant over the next few years.
Well, I'm wondering, Adam, if I mean, the notion of cloud, that's kind of a weird question. How relevant is the word cloud to some of your customers in the first place? How much do they really care that it's cloud per se, or a variety of it, compared to you just meeting their needs? Because you've been around, you know, before the cloud really took traction.
Yeah, I think this is a very highly dynamic environment, right?
Yeah.
And this evolution, let's call it an evolution, where, you know, between public, private, and then somewhere in the middle, that's really occurring now, because there might, and to Randy's point, be some providers out there that maybe their entire business model was based on or geared towards servicing only a few clients, but they never really aggressively went after the market. So they never grew their technologies to be able to support new customers and new requirements that came along, and they end up starting to stagnate over time, and then they end up out of the market. So I think it's very important that you know, we develop our technologies, that we support the environments that are out there that are evolving, and integrating with some of these public environments as well as the shared environments. The customers themselves, I don't think they care so much what you call it. I think everyone is kind of using these terms a little bit interchangeably, or their definitions are always, you know, a little bit different than yours. But what they want to know is that they're going to be able to deliver a product very cost effectively that's going to compete in the marketplace, which means they have to continuously bring down their prices. They're realizing doing it all on their own is extremely expensive, and it's getting much more expensive relative to some sort of a hybrid solution. And they're looking for a partner to help make those choices that will get them there at the end.
Well, this morning we were talking about the notion of being able to work in the entire globe. And the public cloud providers, particularly Amazon in the US, will tell you that because they have such intense needs that they're able to be more secure and more performant, have better performance than anything you can do privately. Is that, and then you said, well, in China you're handling a lot of the gaming, which is the most intense thing that you can imagine. So how much do you agree with that a public cloud provider can really do more, you know, better performance, better security than trying to do it privately? Do you agree with that? And beyond that, how much do you, when you think of hybrid cloud, what do you think of?
Well, I completely agree. As a public cloud provider, I think we normally will be outperform any private cloud. That's simply because you can't have that amount of computing resource that we have around the world. You can't have that much of a storage I/O sitting there doing nothing. And that's really the whole, or the core business model of public cloud. So everybody can share a huge platform, and when you need more, and you can always have more. When you need less, you pay less for it. The one thing Roger mentioned about gaming, and we also have a big partial of customers come from China e-commerce. Those guys like doing promotional sales. Promotional sales, when they come, you have to bear in mind there's 1.4 billion people in China. So those requests, just website requests, are going to request probably in one night, and they're going to need 20 or 30, even 40,000 servers, but they only need 1 or 3 nights. And after that they're gonna have to return the server to me, and I can do it to different customers. Might be gaming, they're gonna consume those computing powers. But think about it, without cloud, if all my customers are going to private, it means those e-commerce companies, they're gonna need 50,000 servers sitting in the data center, pay for the colocation, pay for the capital for the servers, and it's just sitting there. It's just just not a good way to do, or is a very big business risk. That's why, from my point of view, all might be because, as I said earlier, China has just started hosting in reasonably recent year. They don't have the legacy of using a huge private infrastructure, so they get used to that already. Or that's probably one of the reasons in that part of the world, Internet of Things can grow so rapidly.
What I'm thinking, Randy, is that I saw your presentation yesterday, and so whether your customers are dealing across multiple clouds and multiple data centers and all that, you focused a lot actually on the user experience. So it seems like we moved to a point now where you're telling your customers not to worry, but they shouldn't be bothered with all the magic behind that's going on, correct? I mean, you're just showing them, you click here, and it's done.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's about the data, and obviously a lot of people got a kick out of the demonstrations. We had a pretty long line in our booth afterwards yesterday, and we did. And it's just, I kept it simple, which is the users, 95% of the organizations don't care if it's on a cloud. They don't care if it's on a private cloud or a SAN, or they don't care if it's on just dumb JBOD. They just want access to their data, whether it's email, whether it's SharePoint, whether it's Oracle. And if they need an older version or they lost something and have to get it back, they want access to make it simple to get it back. And 95% of the organizations, that's what the IT team's responsibility is. Provide the infrastructure to make it happen, provide the software to make it happen so it's easy to gain access to that data. And let the public cloud and the private cloud and all those buzzwords be remaining for the IT teams and the CFO, because you guys are going to save companies money by offering your services in your data centers for use. But it's really what it comes down to, from my perspective. And I've been around here. I used the circle of life analogy yesterday, which is we're back to the mainframe from 30 years ago. And back when you were ordering a plane ticket on Sabre 30 years ago, you didn't care where the mainframe was. And when you're accessing your Office 365 email, or you're accessing your email in your organization, you don't care where that data is. You just want access to it. So let public and private clouds, it's almost like a referee in ice hockey or a baseball umpire. If they're invisible at the end of the day, then they did a great job.
Then they've done their job, exactly. Yeah. And I'm wondering, Adam, in a sort of a similar question about how you look at your customers balancing needs. Some stuff needs to be done in real time with lots and lots and lots of users. Other stuff is purely archival, and a lot of stuff in between. You have video. I mean, how do you balance all that, and how do you have those conversations?
It depends on so many different factors, because I think in terms of the burst environment where you have tremendous sort of bursting traffic, the private environment is just really a tenuous situation or an overextension of capital. Where a customers or our clients' businesses are much more consistent or constant, we're building environments that are suited to the anticipated demands that their infrastructure requires. And one of the things that we've demonstrated to our clients is that it's really a little bit better for them to work with us in the sense that we can help guide them in some of the choices or decisions that they're needing to make about using cloud infrastructure. But also that in some of the shared environments, there is some level of overutilization of resources in the cloud environment. And we tend to, on our own platforms, tend to not oversubscribe our resources to the degree that others do. So they end up buying fewer resources sometimes at the end of the day, and they can only do that when there's a clearer vision of what their demand is going to be, the demand set.
It just occurs to me, follow up with you a little bit, and talking to the mic while I'm doing it, is I think sometimes if you're a writer, researcher, analyst, sort of the world I live in, you think of public-private hybrid as being sort of like mixing wine. and you put a little bit of Merlot in to cut the cab and a little bit of that. But with your customers, it's probably not that. They're not like checking, I want 30% private, 40% public. They're coming at it from completely different point of view.
Yeah, I mean, I like that analogy, but it actually, a lot of our clients have traditionally, and this is just our narrow perspective, and we're not the biggest player out in the market, although we're growing quite rapidly. But we end up being an augmentation. So some of our clients, they have a legacy system or platform that they're running their core business on. They're never really probably going to migrate away from that, or they won't any time in the near future. They've built their businesses around it, and they can manage it quite well. But then something comes up, and it's like, well, we're going to come out on the marketplace with a new product line. That product line needs some different resources, and it doesn't fit in our existing environment too well, and that's when they come to us. And then we'll help them craft that. And sometimes it's also an extension of the markets that they're in, because we are a truly global platform. Maybe they don't have the resources in the areas of the world that they need it, and we do, so they come to us to help extend their market share.
Okay. And you're shaking your head yes. Are you agreeing with what you're hearing? Or?
Yes, I completely agree.
When you come to are you going to compete with Amazon? Is that your notion of a? I'll just get right to it.
Well,
because you're a big public global provider and you're in China, which, okay, we were saying today, we have to really think of the Chinese economy is the second largest in the world now, and you have kind of these three: North America, EU, and China, and you like to balance at that. So you come here more in the U.S. Is that your goal?
Well, to just answer your first part, yes, we are in direct compete with Amazon and Microsoft in China. But even you add both together, there's more than me over that market. But the reason we're here, we call CDS Global Cloud, is because we have decided to expand from that market out to the whole world. And that's because we have seen this request for a cloud which can work inside China and also work as well as outside. The two companies I mentioned, AWS and Microsoft, they're not. They kind of build a platform inside China in kind of an isolated environment. They don't have network connectivity between. They have to rely on public internet, and especially typically those parts of the internet are not very good. And it's not very suitable for customer need to have a very high-speed data synchronization, or they rely on anything real-time processing, on really to leveraging a public internet. So that's why we built our platform across different continents. In US we have 3, in Europe we have 2. We link them together to provide a foundation for our customer to really build a global strategy, can support all the business needs, and also we extended our customers' coverage into a different part of the world.
So I won't get political, but I heard a funny anecdote, and we'll just leave it as it is, that one view of trade goes like this: I have a sandwich, you have $5, you give me the $5, I give you the sandwich, I win. And that might have to do with trade deficits. So the whole idea is, when you're talking about being able to work in China and North America and the U.S., there's a massive supply chain and massive transportation with the trade between the U.S. and China right now. Yes. And you have very big global companies who are doing this. And are you saying that there's a need for being able to work in both countries, very business focused on the trade? I mean, the trade between the two countries is trillions of dollars maybe by now. It's
a few hundred billion.
It's very
in terms of import and export.
Import and export. It's very, very high number. And you're saying with what you can do with your public cloud services, address those sorts of needs?
Yes. we design our system to really fulfill the needs of real-time business. We're actually helping those new industry, like new media, guys like Netflix, guys like China Central Television Station, are actually utilizing our network to do live streaming across different parts. And also, we are, back to today's topic on the hybrid or on the private. Right. Most of our bigger customers, they will have a small portion of private, but they will keep all the archive data, because they have some government regulations. They have to keep some data in the data center, but they just can't fulfill all the demand of the computing power. That's why they're always on some kind of hybrid. And also, we are working very deeply with AWS on the hybrid across different countries. Okay. We have a few POPs connect between us and the AWS, and their customer actually using both of our networks to go into China as well. So we compete, but we also work together to help in the customers.
I think we're breaking news here. Randy, when you're looking, when he opens up the door here in terms of compliance and regulations and all that sort of stuff. So, technically being able to do things is one thing, sort of from the business perspective is another. But what do you do when you and other vendors, there's so many people involved in protecting someone's data or handling it? I mean, how do you address all those compliance issues?
There's a couple issues that dovetail there, and I'll get to the polycloud one now too. The first one is, it's way cool to be able to manage your data, have access to it, but all of the multinationals we work with, they all have data sovereignty laws, and data has to remain within country. So you can still have a single system, but you still have to have security mechanisms, so only people within a country can have access to that data in country. They may have higher regulations where it has to remain in a specific data center in a city within a country. So the system has to be able to manage that. So it's not just open door, let everybody in. You still have rules and regulations, kind of back to the passport days through Europe, maybe 30 and 40 years ago, that you probably don't remember, but that I remember.
I remember.
Across
passports,
the countries.
Passports and currencies.
So that was a compliment.
That was a compliment.
Yeah, that was a compliment.
That was a compliment. Again, I remember the SNA days a little bit. So so that's the first thing. One, you still have to have rules and regulations about who can see data in which. And the second one is back to the polycloud comment. Now, I cannot take credit for this, although I've been using it a lot. Two smart guys I get to work with, one our CEO, Bob Hammer at Commvault, and the chief evangelist at Microsoft, a guy named Steve Guggenheimer, actually coined it at the Commvault user conference a couple weeks ago in Orlando. We had about 1,600 people. And the polycloud one is a lot of our customers, a very heavy percentage, have more than one cloud. All right, we have customers who are backing up Google Docs to Azure. Okay. Who would have thunk? Because they don't, they want to kind of hedge their bet a little bit. We have customers who have Office 365 backing up and e-discovery indexing that data in AWS. Who would have thunk? But they want fail-safe failover so they can actually have multi-cloud. So that polycloud is having access to that data that may reside in multiple cloud targets, whether it's your private data center in China, and Amazon, and Azure, and a plethora of other cloud targets that may be public or private. And we all have to, we've all gotten really smart as it pertains to multinationals and data sovereignty, because us computer geeks didn't really think about that 15, 20 years ago. It's like, oh, have access to the data. Yeah. And all of a sudden, data sovereignty laws came in, and we all had sit-downs with our legal departments to figure out how to work in that environment.
Right. How do you deal with that, Adam? Because we just talked before about trying to keep things simple and not diving down to those rat holes.
Yeah. But it also is driver for us. It's becoming a bit of a driver for new business, because there are emerging, long-standing, but also emerging sovereignty laws that are requiring data to reside in certain countries. There are companies that have traditionally served certain markets from abroad and done it very well. Maybe latency wasn't the primary driver of the service level of their business, and we're able to do that quite successfully. But then The emerging laws in the EU have driven them to create new instances and replicate their data inside the EU, and they're not really sure how to handle that. So we help support them. And this is starting to occur more and more in various places around the world. So I wouldn't say that it's an easy environment to navigate, but there are, when we're starting to do our MSAs now, a lot of like model processor clauses and things like this that sort of define and delineate how we're going to handle data and process it in our networks to help with our customers navigate those waters.
Okay. Now, Yi, I asked you about hybrid cloud before, but I didn't really let you answer it. I got focused on Amazon. So how do you look at hybrid cloud? Do you see a future, more of a future of trying to integrate what you do publicly with what people
yes.
have?
I think hybrid cloud will be the future model for any traditional enterprises. You need to bear in mind that word, traditional, because we are working very closely with VMware to provide a VMware hybrid cloud solution in China. Basically, there's a lot of customer, they're going to require something locally in the manufacturing, and the data to be saved somewhere else. Or there might be some terminals actually collect the data and have a very short process inside that data center and send it to somewhere else. And that's why VMware kind of start this whole I believe it's called VMware Air in US, but they're actually doing that with us in China, is to start this hybrid cloud model. I strongly believe there will be for the traditional business. That's why we engaged with them. But I need to say it, I don't think for the internet-based thing, it will be a strong requirement for private, because those internet-based companies, they start very small. It's kind of expensive or big capital investment for them to start building a cloud. There's no need. That's why I said it will be more for traditional businesses like oil drilling or like manufacturers.
Yeah, I think a few months ago I was invited by a very large technology company to talk, and then there was a dinner, and they sat me across from one of their customers just to engage, and she was a manager who had a very significant budget for IT, and she just bought a mainframe from this company. It was a large hospitality company, so lots and lots of hotels and resorts and stuff, and she was going to use it for payroll, and that was it. And she said, why would I do anything else? So is she correct? And how do we handle that sort of thinking in this modern age? And she was a young person, but that's how she thought.
I'll be spoiled to answer that. Everything sounds great in PowerPoint, and everything sounds great on paper, but have somebody show you what the products do, have somebody show you what the application does. That's why when I was up here yesterday in the general, we had a long discussion with the AV guys, who have been great, by the way, but they were like, what do you mean you're running self-contained? I said, I'm doing live demonstrations. I wouldn't think of going up here without showing how the products work, or without showing how a user would actually take advantage of it. So I would sit her down and say, here's what you're spending, here's what you're getting, but somebody should have sat down with her and showed her, here's what you can do and here's how much you can save. And that probably would have, opened up her eyes a little bit, and probably the organization at an executive level as well, to say, here's what we're saving by doing this, by going a different, the non-traditional, non-mainframe route.
And she's doing exactly what the organization wanted. I mean, this is the sort of thing where you have some of these major core applications and services that you're always going to have, payroll being one of them, distribution of HR benefits, another one, and again, I mean, maybe Adam, how would you get them to change, or you just leave them?
I'm not there to tell my customer they're wrong. Right. Of course, we always want to lead the conversation. We want to demonstrate a certain capacity or expertise in the marketplace. And we are experts in quite a variety of technologies, and we're advocates for those technologies. But at the same time, you can't be experts in everything, and the clients often have their own pet technologies that they like to work with. And while you want to engage in that conversation, at the end of the day, that conversation is going to lead down a path that the customer is comfortable with, and you're going to help service that as best you can. And if it ends up where it becomes part of a technology that we're not capable of supporting, then so be it. But we do engage in those kind of rigorous conversations and try to provide our own viewpoint. But sometimes clients, they just, they know what they want, and that's going to be it.
So Yi, I've been part of some conferences on cloud computing in China before, and been lucky enough to travel all around Asia. So it's not just in China, also in Singapore, for example. Singapore is an interesting case because it's considered to be this very modern city, but yet the back end is still very, very primitive in a lot of ways. In China, people were saying, well, with the cost of labor still being quite low, it doesn't make sense to be too aggressive with the technology. But you had said that, okay, in China there's not as much legacy architecture. So with traditional processes, though, do you convince people to go straight to public, or do you believe maybe they'll build older architecture? Are they going to are they going to recreate what's already been created in the U.S., or are they going to move more aggressively to public cloud?
Well, obviously, we are trying to get every customer on the public as possible.
Right.
That's because we believe public can do pretty much everything compared to private now. The only one question I keep getting is about the data security. I was asking my customer all the time, do you really think you keep your data in your data center is safe than keep that with us? I think that's completely something to do with the management strategy. Because the way we manage the data is we can pretty much guarantee the data won't be leaking out by our guy, because we have a different layer of control of how and who is able to access the data. And it just put in the simple way, we have never put two or one key in one person. So the person able to maybe access to the backend storage, they don't really know who that data belongs to. That data become valueless.
Yeah.
But if it's in-house IT, I mean, there's going to be very likely few person in the IT department knows what the data is and which one is more valuable, and how or for a traditional or small business or even medium business, how are you going to handle that? I mean, it's going to be much safer to copy your data somewhere else, handled by someone who doesn't really know what that is. That's my point. That's why I don't think cloud security on the data side is really a valuable question. And I don't think there's any case or any large portion of data is being leaking out from the public.
Well, so speaking of data, it's growing. We can all agree it's growing. You can look at the very big picture that says worldwide data growth is 26 to 28% a year. I've seen higher numbers than that, meaning it's doubling every few years. And you run the numbers out for 20 years and they get really terrifying. So the question I have for the three of you, and we'll start with Randy, is how big an issue is data growth to your customers, and what are the other sort of big issues that go along with it?
Data growth is a huge concern, and the cost of managing that. It's one of the areas where cloud has come in and is really a cost savings. And that data growth goes arm in arm with how long does that customer or does that segment have to retain data. I gave the example yesterday, all newborns in New York State. Hospitals have to retain data for 21 years. And that's going across all different industries. So first and foremost is, yeah, it's exploding, and how long do people have to retain it? And cloud becomes a pretty cost-effective way to store data on a longer term. The second thing is we're getting data from so many different places, whether it's healthcare systems or whether it's marketing techniques, or we gave the example from farming yesterday about cows who are creating data, or airplanes who are tuning their engines in flight, and it's online tune-ups in air. If you don't index that data and you can't have access to it and do something with it, what good is it? So paradigm one is how do I store and manage all of this data over a longer period of time from more resources? And secondly, how do I have a single way to index it so I can actually do something with it once I've put it in a cloud? And I think those are the questions for the next few years here.
Yeah,
On
Adam?
data growth.
Yeah, those are excellent points, and obviously the explosion of data is just going to get bigger and bigger every day. The management of that data, not only on a day-to-day basis, what kind of snapshots are you doing, how are you archiving it, that kind of thing, but how are you moving it between the higher performance data solutions to lower cost, maybe more back office type of data storage that doesn't cost as much. Those kinds of plans can save organizations a lot of money. Right now, I don't see necessarily a lot of that going on, at least not with our clients, but I think that'll become more and more important because no matter how the economies of scale are driving storage prices down, the amount of new data is just exploding. So I think the economics of data is going to be really key in the future.
Yeah. Well, you love data growth. You are data growth.
Yeah, we all love
reason
data.
you
we're the data
exist.
growth in the extreme version here. I just did a very small trying to remember. I think last year, 10 months ago, there was something around 13 petabytes data stored on our system, and we just get over 50 petabytes in just about 10 months' time. And data growth is crazy going on our platform. But the one thing we don't have the luxury to do is actually try to compress it, because all the data belongs to the customer. We don't have ability to really indexing it or trying to archive it. But I know our customer are doing quite a lot of that activity already, because we have provided multiple layer of storage solutions for our customer. We encourage our customer to kind of archiving those data into object storage, into some sort of colder data center, so we can release more production FC sort of resource out for it. But yeah, we can't really do any data analyzing at our end because the data does not belong to us.
Right. So
we can help you with that a little bit. Deduplication.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to say one. Go ahead. Well, one final question would be then the complexity of it. So it's just it's not all the same. It's coming from different places. And how's that? That's not going to get any easier.
No, it's not going to get any easier at all. And again, keeping it simple for the end user is paramount. Being able to access your data, whether it's email, whether it's files, et cetera, no matter where they're from, what environment. I know IBM's one of the platinum sponsors here, so we actually have customers now that have come to us and please back up my AS400 data to Azure. Who would have thunk that? It's not really a complex issue, but who would have thought that became a business model for folks to take advantage of? So, again, try to keep it simple. Can you access the data? Can you index it? Can you search for it? If you can find it, you can take advantage of all the different data resources you're being able to manage. If you can't find it and you can't search for it, at best you have a system you may be able to recover to at a point in time.
And Adam, the complexity, how you make it your problem and not your customer's problem? And
well, we don't like to look at it as our problem. Taking away our customers' problems. We're there to help. We're there to help them solve their problems, and there's so many different inputs that come into that are coming from the client, and every client's needs and environment are different. So we definitely look at ourselves as more of a boutique shop. We're handcrafting the right solution for our clients, and that sort of and as time goes on, we just grow with them. That's sort of how we handle it.
Yeah, and then you've got again the complexity. How do you look at that coming from mobile devices, and there's IoT stuff going on, and someone said the other day a PC is a thing actually. How do you deal with the complexity? How are you going to tell your customers that you can deal with all of their complexity, all the sources of their data?
Well, cloud is really it means how to manage your resource, especially for someone like us. We're helping customer managing the hardware because we purely really doing infrastructure service. So the complexity of the underground or foundation system, that's what we have to manage for the customer. But in terms of the actual application, is managed by the customer itself. So unlike those two gentlemen here, we can't really involve that much into customers' application level, but we certainly helping customer reduce the complexity of the actual hardware platform itself. So that's what we are.
Okay. And all three of you will be available once we're done to talk to, but otherwise, how can I contact you? You can give you 30 seconds to pitch them here. We can see you here. Or
you can send email at info@commvault.com. My email address is rdemeno@commvault.com. Happy to respond.
Madam?
Anexia is a global managed service provider in the compute space. We offer compute and data storage resources in 67 cities, 44 countries around the world. Our core customer is looking to expand their borders. So you can reach me at arogers@anexia-it.com or come to our booth in the Expo Hall. We'll be glad to talk to you.
There you go. Yi?
Right. CDS is a global public cloud service provider. We have 14 platforms around the world, and we also link them together with our own fibers. If you require or if you need a good coverage for your application, or especially in China, you can always reach us from www.cdscloud.com, and there's all information about our products and our services online.
Great. Guys, thank you very much. If you have questions, they'll be right over here.